to this discussion, they're now extremely inexpensive to implement. That, ladies and gentlemen, is called the Meraki Mini. It was introduced about a month ago. It costs about 60 Australian dollars. It is a Wi-Fi router that when you drop it together with any other number of these things, produces automatically its own mesh network. And that's cheaper than a Wi-Fi router that you can go in and get at Harvey Norman. And it's more capable because you can drop these around your house and they'll all connect together. You can drop these around your apartment building and you can connect them together. Or, for example, if I drop them around my neighborhood. Now, there's my neighborhood in Surrey Hills. That thing has a reach of about 250 meters, because I've worked very hard on making the radio very good. And 250 meters from my house, that's basically all the ground that I can cover. All right, so I've got a fair footprint just if I put one of those out on my balcony for $60. And, of course, if everyone tried to talk to my one access point, well, I'd be a hurting unit. There'd be a little bit too much traffic there because it's going to be probably a few thousand people. I mean, I've got News Corporation right next to me. They're all going to be trying to get to the access point, who knows? But of course, I wouldn't be the only person in the neighborhood with this. A lot of other people would have them. Now, the interesting thing is what a mesh network is. A mesh network isn't a piece of hardware. We've already got lots of Wi-Fi hardware out there. Mesh networks are software. And when I sit in my home and open up and look for access points for my Wi-Fi, do you know how many I can see from my apartment right now? I mean, it varies sort of depending on which way the ether's blowing, but I can see like 20 access points. I opened it up this morning here, I could see 20 access points in this building. And some of them are probably from over there. All right? And the only reason that they're not mesh networks is because they haven't gotten a firmware upgrade. All of those routers out there in the world can be mesh networks. All you have to do is put some more software in. And so all of a sudden, just by adding some software to all of these points in the network, what I've created is not a whole bunch of single entry points into the internet, but in fact a whole resilient cloud of connections between all these different services in my neighborhood. Now,
excuse me, Martin, that's the wind drop soon. How are you going?
Oh, I'm almost there.
Are you?
I'm almost there. Now, you'll notice that the network is very local, okay? You know, I haven't necessarily said that any of these mesh networks are going to connect to the internet at large, although you can do that. And Meraki indicates that every 10th node should be connected to the internet if you're going up the global internet. But that may not be what I want to do here. Maybe what I want to do is provide a nice high-speed broadband service. And remember, these routers all talk at 50 megabits. Maybe I want to just provide a nice high-speed service to the folks in Surrey Hills. Maybe I want to start my own IPTV channel. Why not? All I need is a great big fat server sitting in my flat and a mesh network of Meraki nodes and maybe a little bit of a set-top box. But you know, the total cost of the hardware there, folks, $300. All right? $300. And that's it, and they own it outright. And then I get to collect subscription revenue, should I charge them, and I get to split the ad revenues with all the channels that I choose to carry. And I did that without Telstra, without the Group of Nine, without the blessing of Senator Coonan, without a go-over from the ACCC. And that technology is all in place today. And I bring all this up to bring home my final point. Telstra isn't needed. And depending on how you walk this walk, you might not even be wanted, all right? Because we have other avenues open. Consumers have not just taken control of the distribution of content, they are taking control of the deployment of networks. And you have to be careful because as you're deploying your high-speed services over the next 5 years, you have to be careful that you haven't just completely missed the boat because you may have waited too long dilly-dallying while the technology and the audience have galloped past you. Because the audience doesn't want the same few hundred channels they're getting on Foxtel. What they want is the same salience they're getting out of YouTube. And the technology is no longer about centralized networks. It's about flexible and resilient mesh networks. And both of those facts are long-term trends. They're only going to increase as we go into the future. And so you have to understand that both the audience and the technology have raced on past you. You're going to be fighting a rear guard action as you build out the network. Now, that doesn't mean game over. I don't want you to, I don't want you to run off to Sotorio and tell him it's time for a fire sale, because that's not what I think. What I do think is that it's time for you to radically rethink your business, because all of that mesh networking still is going to cry for a resilient, high-speed data connection to the global internet. And yes, you know what? It's a commodity business. And it's not sexy. But I'll tell you this, it ain't going to be a small business, because the more people are connected together, the more people want to be connected together. And we have no idea how people are going to use this network to be connected together. You could become a massive company simply supplying the reliable data needs rather than focusing on services, because if you're trying to build out services, you're building your castle on sand, and the tide is rising.